Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Rath Wang. At China's recent two sessions, the NPC and the CPPCC, we saw Xi Jinping work to identify a new model for Chinese economic development. Xi introduced the concept of new quality productivity. We'll look at how likely this could revive China's struggling economy and what this means for the region. Joining us today are Mignonne Chan, Taiwan Center for Security Studies Senior Advisor, Chen Ping-kuei, National Chengchi University, Executive Master Program in Strategy and International Affairs CEO. A warm welcome to both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Xi Jinping's economic thought, also known as Xeconomics, has become the cornerstone of the Chinese economy. Under this, Premier Li Qiang has set this year's economic growth target at 5%. However, there's been much doubt among global experts on whether that is achievable. Dr. Chan, how do you see this new quality productivity?
Well, I think the background of this new concept is due to three dimensions. Number one is the fact that China's property market is experiencing downturn and near to crisis condition. Secondly, due to the fact that the U.S.-China's trade war, technology war is still ongoing, so China is facing great challenges. And thirdly, it's because of the emergent industry that is formulating. So Xi Jinping has this new concept of new quality productivity. The content basically is tailored to address the three above questions. On the property market side, basically, he urged that local economy should not rush to the property investment and then going to bubble. Rather, it should tailor-made to local needs, including a special condition in each provinces differ and cannot just head into the property markets. And secondly, the high quality development has to set up innovation. Given the fact that the supply chain is decoupled or somehow obstructed, basically China needs to have innovative way, particularly speed up the education and R&D area, so that they will not be choked the neck of this good quality productivity. China is no longer a factory in the manufacturing sector. It has to be innovated, just like Acer's our guru, Shi Jinping, has once told us. We need to have a smile curve. That is to say, we need to emphasize in R&D and marketing brand on the two sides. If we keep going in the midstream manufacturing, then we will not be able to smile. It also sort of focusing on future-oriented industry, such as green industry, as well as AI industry that you just mentioned. Xi Jinping has particularly highlighted the Yangtze River Delta, so that to become a big-scale innovative center. So they emphasize the fact that we should not have pointless rush into the property market or bureaucratic process. Rather, the focus of new quality should be emphasizing the people's well-being and ensure workplace safety. Due to the fact that property market itself sometimes is vulnerable to speculation. So this people-centered quality is the fact that Xi Jinping emphasized that housing is for living, not for speculation.
So this area is actually new from the areas that China's traditionally developed, like around the coast, like say from Shanghai down to Guangdong. So you're saying this new area is more inland, but it's in addition to what China has developed in the past.
I believe that he emphasized the supply chain needs to be addressed with local differences.
Right.
So he didn't this time particularly emphasize the coastal area or inland area, but he did highlight the Yangtze River Delta because it's the window to the outside world.
This might be a question for Professor Chen, but there seems to be a lot of doubt in the global investor arena where, as I mentioned earlier, the 5%, that might come with some headwinds.
Right.
What do you see to that?
I think 5% is indeed a very bold goal for China right now. It is very optimistic, but we are not sure if China can do it yet. But there is something that I can say about it. Just recently, China finished a forum, China Development Forum, where they invite a lot of foreign enterprises and IMF, World Bank to Beijing and have a conference. So in that conference, the IMF president recommended China to take some measures to boost its economy, to fix the economy in the right way, to be short. But in fact, China's policy do not actually follow those recommendations. China still focus on production, as Dr. Zhang just mentioned. So it is still focusing on how many China can export, instead of increasing the domestic consumption, which is very important if China wants to continue boosting its economy. Another concern, in addition to the property market, is the provincial debt in China. This is something that it seems Chinese central government didn't want to address yet. So it is still a very high risk for Chinese economy. These provincial debts, it has very significant amount. So if any of these debts become unsustainable, it will become a systemic risk for Chinese economy. So I would say there are a lot of risk in Chinese economy. So most of us observers wouldn't be too optimistic about the 5% goal. But to be sure, we know that China will still grow. It will grow still faster than most of the developed countries in the world.
Given that there are sort of mixed messages in terms of this new innovative initiative by Xi Jinping, and as you mentioned, Professor Chen, that China will still grow. It might grow slower, but it will still grow. And is there anything, Dr. Chan, do you think that we here in Taiwan need to worry about, given that many of our businesses actually invest and work in China?
Right. Basically, the growth in the first 2 months of this year, the trade surplus, the trade growth is 7.1%. All right. So if the outside world, the global market has a shift, we are witnessing that Latin America as well as Africa, including the U.S., the trade figure is surging up. But with Australia, Japan, and EU, the trade figures with China is going down. All right. In terms of Taiwan, do we have to worry about it? Basically, I think we have to deal with China with prudence, not necessarily stopping the trade flow, because after all, China constitutes 40% of our trade surplus. So basically, as long as we have prudent policy without unnecessary agitation to China, I think we're doing fine. Because Taiwan, particularly in the new emerging industry of AI, we still have a cutting edge.
Going back to what many Western experts have said, experts have had high hopes for Xi-conomics when Xi Jinping first came to power. Professor Chen, with the dire state of the Chinese economy, what do you think will China be able to manage its unique style of authoritarianism and its different economic reforms, such as the ones that Xi Jinping is proposing?
I wouldn't use dire to describe Chinese economy because it is still growing, but I do believe that we have reason to say that there are problems in the future. One of the problem will be state intervention in the market. I would say investing in China is pretty different right now comparing to 10 years ago, because 10 years ago, Chinese market is a very laissez-faire market. States seems to intervene a lot, but they actually do not intervene at all. But right now, states are intervening in the financial market, in all kinds of industries. The Xi Jinping is reviving the public institutions in enterprises. So many investors feels that the Chinese government is trying to intervene in the market. So that's why the governance of China right now on its own capital market is very concerning. And this is why a lot of investors start to rethink about their investment, and they hesitate to invest more after the pandemic. According to numbers, we have less and less foreigners residing in China after the pandemic. It cannot attract enough foreign investment as well. The foreign investment figure has been declining for a couple months, for a while. So I think this is something that Chinese government knows, and they try to salvage. So since last August, they have proposed a lot of measures to attract foreign investment. The problem is it does not boost the investors' confidence about Chinese government's intervention in the market. So that's why investors will have second thoughts.
So what would it take to actually boost investor confidence?
I think Chinese government would have to show that they will not easily intervene in the corporation operation unless they really have a good good reason to do so. So what happened in the past few years is that there are many foreign countries, foreign companies are being intervened or being investigated because of the bilateral disputes between two countries, or because Chinese government want to strengthen the measures on market, the regulatory measures on market. So it makes investors really uncertain about what's Chinese government's next move. Would it continue to strengthen regulatory measures? What if tomorrow there will be another executive measures to limit our activities in China? So this is something that really concerns the foreign investors.
With debt defaults, as we talked earlier, Chinese real estate developers' property sales in January and February fell to about 1 trillion RMB, down 29.3% from the same period in 2023, based on figures from the Chinese government. This has severely affected economic growth. Professor Chan, do you see any way out of this?
Well, in the year 2008, in the West, they have these property-related financial markets. And at that time, I believe that China has also learned the lessons and observed how things are going. Basically, in the West, the debates at that time was between two camps. One is the property market is too big to fail. So a lot of companies, they are debating the government should come to the rescue by bailing them out. And another camp will emphasize the so-called moral hazard. If you do the rescue once, and how about the second round, third round? Are they going to count on you all the time and then do mismanagement of the property market? So I think this is the essence of the debate in the capitalist market. Now, in the China, let's bear in mind that it's a state capitalism, all right? So whatever they are doing, they have their own traditional industrial policy. It is always alternate in between centralization and decentralization. It always take one strict and one lax measure.
So it's a slim balance between the two.
That's right. And that matches up the Chinese philosophy of yin-yang balance, right? So on the one hand, you don't want to stifle the market dynamics, but on the other hand, you need to set the rules very clear so that the developers and the mortgage owners, as well as future buyers, they all get some lesson from it. For the developers' side, for example, they are now out of cash. And then the local province cannot come to rescue. So they're looking up to the central government to do the bailout. From the mortgage owner, if you don't come and ease their nerve, they may go to the street for protests and become social riots, right? And from the future buyer standpoint, they need to establish consumer confidence so that the problem, the crisis could be resolved. But I believe the traditional way of alternating centralization and decentralization will not change.
It's interesting Dr. Chan mentioned balancing of how that's part of the traditional culture of China. And another balance is the relationship between Taiwan and China. Many say that because the Chinese economy is slowing down, that China, perhaps Xi Jinping could use Taiwan as a distraction from domestic contempt, so to speak. How likely will that happen, Professor?
So this is called a diversionary logic in international relations. So it happens when the government is having low support domestically, it may use a crisis or a conflict to divert the domestic audience attention and unite the domestic audience to support the government. That's the logic. But I see very few reasons to believe that China will use that tactic. First of all, past research tells us that whenever China has an internal problem, the CCP will focus on the internal struggle, and they will try to ease the external struggle first, so they can focus internally. Second, there were many chances where China could have provoke or instigate a crisis or conflict with neighboring countries in the past few years. And China didn't do that. Well, I think the most notable example would be the Sino-India border dispute. There are many opportunities to provoke a dispute with India and unite the domestic Chinese to support the Communist Party. But China did not chose to do that. So I really doubt that Taiwan will be the target of the diversionary tactic.
Speaking of disputes, the US and Chinese economies depend on each other even as both countries compete. In President Biden's State of the Union address, he mentioned seeking competition over conflict. Yet high-tech competition between the two has intensified. Originally concentrating on semiconductors, quantum technology, and AI, this has now expanded to electric vehicles, satellite communications, shipbuilding, to TikTok, and even cranes out of concerns of national security. Professor Chan, how do you see this entailing, given that this has expanded to other areas outside of just chips?
Well, first of all, Biden is running for election, and then he needs to cater to business community's voice. Firstly, if you wish to deviate from the China market, whether in trade or investment, you have to think two areas. Number one, the market. Do you want the China market, or could you replace the China market from other alternative places? right? And secondly, you need to bear in mind that with the vicious cycle of retaliation, China is going to do the same to U.S. company, and that's going to backfire. And then the long orchestrated international trade of opening market has been preached all the time over the years. But right now, if you want to stop it, just like you stopped number 2 in the middle of 80s against Japan, and then people start going to wonder your world leadership. How do you cope with competition? Is it going to expand to other areas? Most likely, but high tech is the chief concern. Anything related to technology acquisition by China, the U.S. will try very hard to stop that. And furthermore, in the new area of green environmental protection, green energy, ironically, when China makes the most economic electric vehicle, EV, in the world market, but it has encountered embargo or suspicion of national security. So this is the cause of decoupling that any country will have to assess. What is good for you? To what extent should you compete, and should you collaborate?
It's interesting you mentioned that. Professor Chen, how do you feel the U.S. can manage this, both competition and doing business with China at the same time? It seems to be a very delicate fine line here.
Right, that's true. I would say it will be difficult to maneuver this fine line. And I would say that the U.S. is trying to really clarify what kind of technology is something that we have to compete with China, and thus there are some kind of products and technology that we can just let the market to decide.
What do you say of the cranes with the U.S. recently saying that there might be surveillance or some sort of information that could be sent to Beijing?
So the problem with those cranes is that, normally speaking, those cranes will have device to send repair or updated messages to the crane, so they can modify the firmware or something. So you normally do not have the communication capability to send out data, right? You shouldn't need that kind of function. But the U.S. started to find that a lot of Chinese-made cranes, they have devices that send data. Those data are, so far, they didn't find anything harmful to national security. But the fact that these devices have the ability to send data and receive data, it suggests that hackers can potentially use it to remotely control those cranes. And those cranes can be a national security concern because it can tell rivals about the U.S. troop deployment, supply, or it can paralyze port operations.
Dr. Chen, bringing us back to Taiwan, what do you feel Taiwan needs to do as we trade and work closely with both nations, the U.S. and China?
I think, first of all, Taiwan is a trading post and an R&D center. So we cannot afford to take sides. What Taiwan should do, in my view, is to create our own value and maximize the common interest with both and minimize the conflicting interests.
What about you, Professor Chen?
I think this is a difficult time for Taiwan. The reason being that being a Taiwanese businessman who used to invest in China, now you have a deteriorating investment environment, and you don't have as much business opportunity as before since the U.S.-China trade war. So I think as Taiwanese business, there are fewer and fewer choices they can make. For the Taiwanese government, I think, unfortunately, the tension between U.S. and China only brings Taiwan to a very awkward position where Taiwan can only enjoy very little autonomy because we rely on the U.S. So much on the security side. So whatever U.S. demands, we will cooperate. We will coordinate with the U.S. and this will give us less and less room to maneuver. However, what we can do is that we can try to explore new markets. We can encourage the businessmen to.
Such as in Southeast Asia with New South.
That's true, and that's exactly what many business already try to explore. They don't even need our government to ask them to do so. They already start to seek new opportunities. So in the future, we will see a new kind of global supply chain. China will be still a very important part of it, but I think what we're used to for the last couple of decades will start to change in the next decade.
We live in interesting times indeed. Thank you, Dr. Chan and Professor Chen, for both of your insights.
Thank you.
If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.